talking Calgary about converting some of that to residential. Great idea. Unfortunately, office buildings aren't designed, we're not designed initially to be residential towers. So if you think of things like access to a window, if you've got a square building, it doesn't work. A rectangular building works much better for conversion to residential. And in addition, it's expensive to do that because think of the plumbing you need in a residential tower. So every unit needs a washroom, a kitchen. On office floor plate doesn't have that.
Why don't you give a little self-introduction? Who are you? Who do you work for? And what do you do?
Sure. So I'm a partner at the law firm Osler, Hoskin and Harcourt. It's one of the premier national firms in Canada. We date back to the 1850s. We are a national law firm with offices in Vancouver, Calgary, Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal, and New York. Toronto being the mothership, the biggest office in our network. I've been practicing real estate law for just over 35 years, and I'm the chair of our national real estate group.
Perfect. Well, welcome to the show.
Qualified. Yeah, there you go.
Now, there is another Paul Morisuti out there.
There is. He's my cousin. He's the chair of CBRE. So
what?
The real estate DNA runs deep in the family.
Just to make sure, keep everybody.
Creativity though with the naming is not so strong.
It's a good name. It's a good name.
Well, I had the name first, but
Okay.
he's younger, taller, thinner, has a full head of hair, dresses well, has a swanky condo. He doesn't hurt my brand any, so I let him use the name.
No
Good.
competition.
So some of the things that we were talking about before, Paul, was just a lot of the commercial office space, right? I mean, right now we're hearing all sorts of different things. We're hearing about vacancy rate across the country is at about 13% higher in places like Calgary. We've got office buildings that are looking at being converted into residential space. We've got work from home trends where people are almost saying, come back to work. We're paying for all this office space. We need you here at the office.
We demand it.
What's the trend right now? Like, I'm just reading these things. I'm not actually a commercial tenant or landlord for office space. So what's the truth?
So the truth is all of the above, and some other stuff as well. Different markets have different pressures. So let's start with Calgary because that's the outlier when it comes to office vacancy. And let's just talk about the office market itself because there are other asset classes are being affected quite differently than office. The big issue for office is return to work versus work from home. Calgary has other pressures because it's still, as hard as they're trying to diversify their economy, it's still a one industry town. As oil and gas goes, so goes Calgary. So oil and gas took a hit a few years ago, which really affected the office market in Calgary. And that's why it's got the higher vacancy rate. In addition, it's got the oldest office stock in Canada. So a lot of the vacancy is driven by Class B and Class C buildings. The Class A towers, they're fine. They've got an abundance of lower quality or aged office towers. And that's why you hear talking Calgary about converting some of that to residential. Great idea. Unfortunately, office buildings aren't designed, we're not designed initially to be residential towers. So if you think of things like access to a window, if you've got a square building, it doesn't work. A rectangular building works much better for conversion to residential. And in addition, it's expensive to do that because think of the plumbing you need in a residential tower. So every unit needs a washroom, a kitchen. On office floor plate doesn't have that. So if you can find the right building to retrofit, the cost to retrofit is prohibitive. But can it work? Sure, it can work. And
There's a million
free building. If you get a free building,
a million square feet was just approved in Calgary. 12 different buildings, 1,200 units, something like that.
Yeah, and it's taking tax incentives from the city to sort of bridge the gap on the economics.
Okay.
And
free building.
Yeah, free building. Well,
wow.
It's not really free because somebody owns it, right? But yeah, if you can't get office tenants in there, then you may not have much choice. It's either that or blow it up and do something else, like literally demolish it.
How high are these things in Calgary anyways? Like they're blowing them up here if they're even 20 stories.
It said 12 buildings, 1,200 units. So, I mean, they'd probably be low. I mean, they wouldn't be that high, right? 6 to 10 stories, something like that. 10,
Well,
10
you might
units
have
per.
taller than that. You might probably 20 to 30 is my guess
Mhm.
for office towers, right?
Yeah.
But again, Toronto, Vancouver, very, very different markets, right?
Yeah.
It probably makes way better sense to knock an old building down and put up a brand new condo or multi-res building if that's the direction you want to go in. But no one's doing that. You might start seeing that in some of the older stock, but for now, that's not happening in
Well,
either.
in Toronto, they protect all those buildings. You know, they're like,
Yeah.
well, that was built in 1946. We better make sure no one ever can come to Toronto without seeing that building. And you look
Yeah.
at it and you're just like, what? What are you doing?
We should force them to make like this really crazy modern thing that pops out of this beautiful old building that also makes the numbers not work anymore. Like the performance doesn't work because you got to spend $8 million to save that facade. So crazy.
Yeah,
I've seen some pretty cool stuff though that they've been forced to do, but like, how do they make money? That's why the prices keep going up, because they force you to do such stupid shit. Spend so much money on stuff, nonsense, that you got to raise the price. It's the only way out. Are people?
Yeah, it's almost like you can never change something just because it was there before, right? I'm not a fan of the brutalist architecture period, where it's basically just a lot of a concrete wall with square windows. But for whatever reason, it's been deemed a form of architecture that needs to be protected.
Mhm.
And so it's one thing if you have a beautiful historical facade that actually is aesthetically pleasing, but we're now protecting things that I find aesthetically ugly.
Yeah.
Right? So where's the city building in that initiative? But to your point,
and that's the old enough stock. Like that's the stock that's old enough for us to actually demolish and to replace. Right?
exactly.
And so that's why we're not seeing as much in Vancouver and Toronto. Hey guys, thanks for watching our clips channel. Why don't you go and check out some more clips? We got lots of other good content somewhere over here. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Boom.
That was good.
That was good. I like that. That was good.